So we now get to meet Matty Lawrence. He is the founder of a co-working space, which is fantastic, and also a new initiative that is called More Than Happy. Now, don't be fooled by the name here that says Ben Davies. It's actually Matty Lawrence. I'm joining in from Ben's account, which is just such a fun tech hack, right? But Matty has an incredible journey in community building. And so he is basically running a co-working space in Torquay, which is a town that is also a certified B Corp. And so it's a local co-working space that is always a 5 to 10 minute walk from someone's local house, which basically allows people to foster connection, collaboration, and run a purpose-led business. So through Happy Spaces, Matt champions the idea that workspaces are actually a catalyst for stronger neighborhoods and thriving local economies. His approach blends value-led business models with a passion for creating good vibes and basically understands where people feel supported and inspired. So alongside Matty, he also founded the More Than Happy Journeys, which is creating journeys in true nature, like pilgrimage and hikes in Japan, that actually connect nature with connection and growth. And his path has taken him through Bhutan and all across the world, and has been an inspiring journey where he now can take groups of people to learn around the world. So Matt brings together incredible groups of people, and we've been connected for about 4 to 5 years, which is always fabulous to then just see what people build and how they actually create communities online and in person, which is always so fabulous. And so today in this session, we get to understand how co-working spaces build community. So really in this session, we want to unpack, if you are building a physical community like a co-working space, you want to understand that the most successful co-working spaces understand that their real product isn't just the desk and fast Wi-Fi, but it's the genuine members and the people that actually connect and engage through the spaces. So we want to discover that intentional strategies and understand actually how to create success. And basically, we want to understand how to actually connect members in person together. So really, we have this in physical space, and we then want to understand all of the different elements that come into play for the strategies of building a co-working space. I remember, we've got Matty here, and I remember even when I was working at RMIT Activator, I was running the co-working space there. And I always thought wow, how do you connect people in person? How do you merge like Slack or WhatsApp and really make sure that the co-working space is humming? So now we've got Matty Lawrence here joining live from Happy Spaces himself. So Matty, please take us away for all of the secrets.
Thank you for such a wonderful introduction there, Paz. I love all your passion and energy. So I'm here to talk to you today about cultivating connected co-working communities. It's been a beautiful journey for me, but what I want to do is share a little bit of a story around how I was, looking for something that I was creating by scratching my own itch. I had 15 years in the corporate community and wondered why people and culture and workplace environment wasn't a focus then. So back in 2016, I was looking to create something. I wanted to work close to home. I wanted to be in my community. I wanted to collaborate with people locally. I wanted to reduce my commute time, wanted to be close to my family and friends and right in the hub of the village. And that's where this journey took me. I think what we all love about co-working is there's this possibility and this potential beyond the desks and the meeting rooms. And that's what I want to talk to you about today. The first people we're going to hear from is actually from our early adopters. And I think the process of integrating your early adopter feedback and your insights is absolutely integral to creating a space that thrives in terms of connection and belonging beyond that productivity and collaboration that comes.
Happy Spaces is a network of local workspaces. I've come to Happy Spaces because I live across the road.
I really wanted to get outside of the house.
Being close to
but being out of home.
I get out of bed at about 8:15 and I'm here by 9 a.m. comfortably.
Everything else is like really corporate, and here it's just really fun and friendly.
The open kitchen, the open community, everybody walking around, you always cross paths with somebody else.
You have conversations with someone that can lead to going in a direction of using them in your business.
So I met Murray here one day at the office.
I run a drinks business, sparkling mineral water.
We saw him pull out a can of Commons for me. I thought it was a cool product. So we started chatting, and a few months later we had the product on board Jetstar.
And that's what we've been really amazed is what happens out of such a small space.
It genuinely feels like a community.
The same people say hello and everyone knows each other's name.
Everybody's doing something different.
I do what I do because I'm trying to make the world a better place. Most of the people here seem to be wanting to make the world a better place.
So it's just great to have that inspiration when you walk through the door.
So it feels like you've got a team, you know.
There's so many stories here that always amaze me and surprise me.
Within each and every one of us lives an incredible story, a story that comes from a lived experience, from the triumphs of our adversities, and from the daily joys of our lives. And when we share these stories, that's when we can rely on each other and we can create a resilient, adaptable community.
I think for me, it's really just the connecting with people on a small day-to-day basis, sharing in their stories and sharing my story with them.
Building those genuine relationships with people is what we're all about.
Couldn't get better than Happy Spaces.
Calm as cut.
Happy Spaces is... So what we did with our early adopters was we actually brought them into the process of co-creating our model, really. We had an idea about what we wanted to create, all the things I mentioned before about living and working locally, reducing our commute time. But we wanted to get an understanding of what it was for our members that made us what we are. So they really helped us confirm and clarify our model and what Happy Spaces was. I have to say I had a real challenge with naming a business Happy, given there's a lot of emotional, energetic attachments with that word. But the real focus for us and the realization through this process was that people were looking for connection and belonging beyond the day-to-day function of a co-working space, specifically in their local area. So we took our members on a one-day adventure where we took them to a community school that was really big on creating connection between their teachers, students, and families. We took them to an environmental space that taught us about the best ways to make our space environmentally friendly and sustainable. We took them to a place called Cremorne, which is a big hub in Melbourne, which is very well known for its placemaking and community engagement in terms of how it relates between the businesses, the area itself. So we got to take our members on that journey and then implement and put that into a thing called human-centered design, which informed the way that we lay out not only how we lay out our spaces, but also how we create engagement through the spaces as well, which was really beautiful. And not only does that help with creating a model that is sustainable, it also helps engage those members to become advocates and champions for your organization and becoming a real filter or a funnel and a flow for word of mouth, which is our biggest source of lead generation through Happy Spaces. So clarity of model is really important, right? So understanding who you are, what you stand for, and really owning that. I remember early days. So that video is actually from 2018. So back when we just started in a 180 square meter, very small space, but very high on impact. And we've grown since then into bigger spaces. But just to give you an understanding of the impact that was created from there, the friendships, the collaborations, both locally and globally, were actually absolutely huge from a space of 24 desks. And now we're up to spaces with 70 desks. So, but that clarity of model that came from doing that work with our early adopters was absolutely invaluable. And this is what it's led to: close to home co-working. So our whole vision was about bringing people together to thrive locally, focusing on the pillars of genuine connection. So people can be their authentic selves in Happy Spaces. local collaboration. So basing ourselves right in the heart of the village, right in the heart. So here in Torquay, we overlook the ocean. There's cafes and restaurants all around us. So all of the amenities are here for people to enjoy. Community belonging was also a big one that came out of our work with our early adopters, was that people wanted to feel a sense of home in their second home, really. So finding out about things that are happening locally, getting access to information through other members, and finding out things through each other was something that made them feel actually closer to their communities, which was a huge piece for us around impact. And then finally, better business. So through our network, through our community, and through the intention that we had behind our spaces, was that doing business better was actually really important to us. And that led us to becoming a certified B Corporation, which measures impact around your social, community, environmental, and governance models as how you operate your business. So all of those things came out of a combination of our vision for the business, but also the input from our early adopters to create this model called close to home co-working. So close to home means, proximity, no commute, all those functional things of living and working close to home, but close to home in the sense of, it's a family environment here. People make friends here. People connect inside and outside of the space, and that flows right through to their local communities. And that's what we came to be as a name, was this close to home co-working communities. In terms of model clarity as well, I think it's really important that you know what you are. I think early days in any venture, you can be tempted to be by customers that may or may not suit your business, and that ends up becoming an issue. So getting that clarity of model for us was basing ourselves on optimal community sizes. So under 150 people is this optimal size for a community, because it means that you can walk around, you can see each other, and you can connect without us actually needing to be there. So that was a really big thing for us, was basing our spaces on optimal community sizes. Our locations had to be fantastic as well. So right in the village, like I meant before, natural light, 500 to 1,500 square meters, to ensure that people could bump into each other and not get lost in different places around big spaces. So that was important to our model, including having an open desk focus as well with flexible memberships. So for us, having open desks as a main focus, but with a lot of private spaces for people to have meetings, was important, so that we could continue that connection and belonging within the space, making things efficient and tension-free. So access and things like that and bookings, making that really easy as well. And focus on connection, collaboration, and belonging was a really big point of difference for our business, and also a key driver of word of mouth. So another thing that we implemented, which I'll speak about in a moment, was our community rhythm and also impact events. So we wanted to be known for business as a force for good. So that was the real area of focus that we created in terms of our business events, linking into our B Corp certification since 2017. And not only is B Corp a great funnel for impact measurement, it's also an incredible community to connect and collaborate with. Also, in terms of that clarity of model, we really wanted to ensure that our space and amenities had purpose and meaning behind them as well. So we had locally inspired and sustainably sourced materials, recycled and repurposed materials. Over 80% of the space is recycled and repurposed, even though it looks brand new. Even our carpets recycled. Open plan by design, supported by private spaces, and connection and communal areas, which is pretty common for co-working spaces. And like I said, community was a huge part of our source of impact and our model. People really get to know each other beyond collaboration. Also, in terms of people often ask us, how do you ensure that you're onboarding the right type of members? And for us, the message that you put out there is actually the biggest part. So values attract the aligned members. So in terms of the way we induct and the way that we communicate through our tours, we were very clear on what we are all about. So Here's a list of our values on the right here, which you can see. So keeping it real, you can be yourself at Happy Spaces. We want to connect authentically and build real relationships. So whilst networking is obviously a big part of the way a co-working space operates and some of the value of being in a co-working space, what we found to be really important and also real for us is that we wanted to create experiences, social activities, and events that focused on people to getting to know each other beyond the veil of professionalism. And that would then lead to even better collaborations in terms of business. Fostering belonging as well. So that was another one for us. So we love the fact that we were born locally and reflecting the unique culture and character of each of those communities. And we wanted people to feel the impact of our co-working space beyond just working out of another office space. You'll see in a moment that the impact we've had in terms of connecting people with their local area is very, very profound, in the sense that not only do they meet other people and get to know them in a real way, they get to find out about what's happening in their local community. We know of 3 separate friendship groups that have been born directly out of our Torquay space, and that's something that we're really proud of. And then empowering each other. So the way that we support each other, our group, our WhatsApp group at Happy Spaces is incredibly active in terms of people supporting each other, sharing different role types, giving people advice, and that is a really important part of our values. Our purposeful business model as well, and then celebrating the journey as well, which I'll touch on in a moment. But essentially those values started to be communicated through our marketing, through our inductions, through our tours, and also that started to flow out through our word of mouth. So when you have that, those messages going out to the world, they come back to you. So what we found over time was that actually we didn't really need to attract or to target the right people. They would come to us. So we didn't need to filter any customers out that weren't values aligned. It happens very infrequently where we have issues with members because they understand what we stand for. Setting the tone and standards is also a big one as well. So, you know, from a fundamental point of view, most of our desks are in open plan. So we get the question a lot, you know, what about phone calls? I'm loud when I'm on the phone. I talk a lot. I make a lot of calls. So as an example, we started to collect up and do surveys around what was acceptable ambience and what was acceptable in terms of the way people would work in the space. And we would induct people into those standards as well. And we would give feedback on those standards as the key stakeholder and the custodian of the community. We had the belief that everything needed to be put through the lens of what's best for the community. We actually induct our members into a set of standards and values, and we take our members through the space and share with them around what they are. And we also have a 20-minute induction into the expectations of our community and give feedback, and also expect that feedback from our members as well. And that takes out so much heartache in terms of issues and challenges that we face, and having that documented, having that inducted and shared, and having that, I guess, boundaries around how to operate. Not only does it make it easy for you to communicate and onboard people into it, also allows you to see who is not right for your community, and you can be clear with them around that. Well, if this is not going to work for you, then that's okay. The community rhythm. So this is one of my favorite things that has come out of our organization. That's the community rhythm. We really wanted to invest in, let's call it the social fabric of day-to-day co-working and day-to-day work. So most of our members are people that have 1 to 4 people in their team. So they've got all these colleagues around them now that they don't actually work directly with, but they spend their working days with. So we created a community rhythm, which was daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, and annually, around a social rhythm that people could opt into. So everything from lunches on Tuesdays, a coffee on us every month. We have a quarterly celebration where we go out to lunches. We've had winery tours. We've had celebrations. And so that gives our members the engagement beyond just doing their work and being productive for their days. and it creates the stickiness, it creates the advocacy, and it really does bring people together. So that community rhythm where there's this cadence of different activities, mostly social, just to get people to know each other more and to connect more, has been one of the most powerful things that we've created. Celebrating the journey as well. So you can see the image down there. That's our end of year celebration. We called it the end of year fiesta. Our community manager is Peruvian, German, and we got behind her and that energy. And all these people from all different businesses coming along to celebrate their end of year fiesta. So celebrating those milestones and those journeys with our community has been incredibly powerful. We also have put on events and a pitch party, a number of pitch parties actually that were focused on impact businesses. And we had investors coming down from big investors from all different organizations coming down to our pitch party. And as you can see on the left there, it was a party. We had a band going, there was crowd involvement, and this wasn't like Shark Tank or any of those aggressive pitching events. Our community got right behind our pitches, and that's what we're really big on, is celebrating the journey and doing events that are values-led and align with what we stand for. So I can't understate how much that rhythm, that cadence, those milestones of celebration, and also that daily, weekly, monthly rhythm that people can tap into to have their colleagues working together, but not in the same organization, to have people to share with, to get advice from. And that really is our main focus, is creating that authentic connection. And what is great about that from a business point of view is that it generates advocacy and word of mouth as a business, but also means that you're really enjoying your day-to-day as well, because it's not just work. Also, the heart and soul of your community is everything. So we have our community manager, whose name is Kirsten. She doesn't know that she's in this presentation, but she exemplifies our values and is the heart and soul of our community. So getting someone that believes in your organization, the values of the organization, the mission, and what it stands for as much, if not more than you do, is very, very important. This person is the day-to-day person. This is the person that people seek advice from. This is the person who's helping with the printer if it's not working. This is the person who is hosting lunches, hosting coffees, and generating the energy behind events. And if they don't believe in what you do, then it's not going to be authentic. So finding someone who lives and breathes your organization and can be that energetic heart and soul is absolutely critical to the success of a connected community in co-working. Aligned partnerships as well. It's very easy, I think, to look at all these different partners in business and seeing how many you can do and what may or may not work. But I think once you have your values and your core offering, your clarity of model is who are your aligned partners and collaborators that you can work with to create events, to get speakers, to add value to your organization. We've run at least 10 events with B Corporation. We've run 3 pitch parties. We've run a number of business as a force for good networking events, which share the stories of local B Corps and national B Corps. We've had Kathmandu, we've had Rip Curl, we've had Beyond Bank. We've had so many organizations come and present at Happy Spaces. And I think it becomes even more relevant when you're putting out a message that is true to your organization. So having those partners that are really, really aligned to what you stand for, again, not only does it make your activities more impactful and relevant for your audience, but it filters your decisions around who that you activate with, and that saves you time. Impact beyond productivity. We've been measuring with our community through surveys since 2017. So you can see here our aggregated results. And I think ensuring that you're measuring the pulse of your community beyond productivity is very important, because again, it shows how much they're enjoying their experience and therefore still champions and advocates for your brand, for your business. And it's creating that word of mouth as well. So you can see here our net promoter score is very high on average over the 8-year period. You can see that people have got increased productivity versus working from home, which is really interesting, right? Because you're in an open plan environment, you're having conversations, coffees with other people, but you're seeing an increase in productivity. And that's because it's a clear space to work. When you're working at home, you're focused on maybe doing the washing or packing the dishwasher or looking at these things that can become what I call domestic distractions. So in seeing that increased productivity has been a really powerful tool for us to share with our community and our incoming members as well. One thing we're really proud of is that people are feeling happier working close to home rather than being at home. So almost 100% of people are happier because they're working from happy spaces close to home in their village around community rather than working at home. Really high collaboration numbers, people generating new business. We're saving people time, right? 73% of our aggregated member community over the 8-year period have had a commute time of less than 10 minutes. 92% of people making friendships, which is fantastic. I'm disappointed that the 8% who didn't make friends, but we can have impact there as well. And then 86% seeing a deeper sense of belonging to their local area. Now, when we've got a world right now where people are feeling disconnected, people are feeling lonely, to be able to have impact in that space where people are feeling a deeper sense of belonging to their local area is such a powerful thing. So measuring these impact spaces beyond productivity, I think, is a really important thing for creating community connection in your co-working space. That's it from me. There's my details if you'd like to connect. My passion is bringing people together to thrive. I love witnessing how when you create a space, you create a community and it changes people's lives, whether it's friendship, whether it's collaboration, or whether it's that connection and to their local areas is a beautiful thing. So if that's something that floats your boat, then that's something that I love. And there's where you can connect with me there. And at this point, I'd love to open up to any questions, any thoughts, and just absolutely love sharing our story with you on how to create a connected co-working community.
Matty Lawrence, I am so grateful for you just sharing the entire story. I'm also a Happy Spaces member, so I work out of this co-working space. It's like 15 minutes from my house in Torquay, and honestly, it has changed my life, like living down here in the Surf Coast. I remember going to one of the pitch parties. I met Michael Dixon, who is the MC. I went to like 5 of his events, and then I actually hosted my own album launch for my guitar at Happy Spaces, and then invited Mike to be the MC, for that whole event. Like, I have made so many friends, met housemates, business connections. People have joined our program through that. So it is just such a beautiful space that you've created, Matty, and your model is so unique. So I'm just so grateful that you've just unpacked the entire case study. I had to put on a new fresh orange jacket for it because I've been doing at least 5 outfit changes. I actually brought a hat from our Fiesta party that we had last year, Matty, and just had to add the orange outfit, right? So it just all comes back together. But Matty, we've got plenty of time for some Q&A, which I'm really excited about. And we've got a question here in the chat that says, how do you define the values of your community at the co-working space, especially because you had that beautiful advice that values attract aligned members, but how do you actually define the values?
Yeah, that's a great question. I forgot to mention at the beginning of this presentation that, as a business owner, or when you're creating something, you are a stakeholder. So, and you're probably the lead stakeholder or the biggest stakeholder at the beginning of that. And essentially, you're scratching your own itch. So I was trying to create something that felt like it was good for me. And then I realized that was good for others. So the values organically start to flow through you and you start to document them. But what I did was I'd had some experience in creating brand, vision, mission, values, and legacy. So putting together essentially a brand DNA. So once we collected up all of the information from the stimulus and the inputs that we were looking to create, and then bringing that in with our early adopters and our customers, including that into our feedback, those values through that process of a vision, mission, and values process, a brand DNA, were really helpful to filter those down and then articulate them into statements. So in a nutshell, it was doing that brand vision process, which goes through your legacy, your purpose, your mission, your values, and that's what we did. And we evolve it over time as well. So check in on that. We talk about it as a team. We also use EOS, which is an operating system that we've been using for the last 2 years. That process, that system integrates your vision and values into that. So workshopping that was really helpful as well. So yeah, it's a combination of what's your vision, how do you then take it through that filter, that funnel of your why, how, and what, your vision, and then optimizing that and evolving it with your customers, your team as it goes along.
I just love this mini masterclass. I just want to take notes of what everything Matty is saying, right? I mean, the chat is going off, Matty. We have 280 people here live just absorbing all of your wisdom. And what I love about that answer is that it's about co-creation as well, right? We have to understand, okay, what are our members' value? Like, what are the principles that we stand for as a group of people sharing this space, right? And I love that it's just this continuous process. It's not a one and done element, and can also fully preach to the EOS model. I love Gino Wickman and what he's created in his book Traction, which is phenomenal. And EOS really is that idea that you have to have the foundations in order for the rest of the business and the community to thrive, right? Like if you have operations that don't serve people, things are getting missed, but it's not documented, data's everywhere, it's messy in the back end, that's going to seep out, right? So what have you kind of learned from the EOS principle, just to kind of go a little bit deeper on that, because I think it's a really potent one.
Excuse me. Yeah, the EOS, I would say the EOS approach for us has straightened us up. There is a lot of ways you can get distracted in business. And by having these, what they call quarterly rocks, which are your focuses for the biggest priorities in your organization, and then how that flows through to your meeting rhythm. We're having a number of meetings that were effectively doubles up or redundant meetings that were costing us a lot of time. So you're able to document your strategy, your vision, your key focuses for the quarter, and then build that over a couple of years. And then you're catching up quarterly as a team for an entire day. But we have one 90-minute meeting a week, which covers off, I would say, 90% of our requirements around moving things forward. And obviously it doesn't negate the need for phone calls, texts, emails, all that sort of stuff, and that day-to-day interaction, but it really straightens you up in terms of your focus and your priorities, and measures you as well as to the success rate of actually hitting those as well. So it creates a very level playing field for your team to relate to each other. So if you've got a hierarchy in place, this really creates a level playing field and integrity, I guess, around whether you're hitting your goals or not.
Yes. And honestly, the rocks were such a game changer for me as well, especially in community building, because, it's pretty wide spread knowledge to understand, all right, you've got to set your annual metrics. And we want to achieve, let's say, 500 members this year. But then the rocks go, okay, great. Well, what are you going to do this quarter? Well, we just need 35 members. It's not rocket science. This isn't new knowledge, but it's such a great reminder for all of us here that, yes, set your annual metrics, break it down into chunks. So you each have quarterly rocks, have every team member have at least one metric that they're responsible for, either reporting or actually executing on. And then exactly what you said, review your meetings to make sure that you're not just wasting everyone's time. At the Community Collective, as a team, there's 4 of us in the team. I have a fortnightly one-on-one every 2 weeks for half an hour with each team member. And every other fortnight, we have one 30-minute meeting as a team where we basically just problem solve any issues and any metrics that are off track. And that has helped us just double down on what's working in the community and just cut what is not. And so, Matty, we've got lots of questions coming through here. I hope you're ready.
I'm ready.
We've got
Let's
a good
go.
And also anyone here live, we've got, the next kind of 20 minutes now just to really dive into Q&A. So if you want to jump in the Q&A box, add a question, I can ask it to Matty on your behalf. But we've got one here from George, which is, do you have any other frameworks that you use for impact measurement? So do you have any other frameworks that you use for impact measurement?
Yeah, thanks, George. I mean, B Corp has been our foundation for the last 8 years, and that's seen a lot of evolution. That's very much been our baseline. The other one that I spent quite a bit of time learning about and ended up becoming a practitioner was actually in gross national happiness out of Bhutan, which is a holistic measurement system around the well-being of any community. So it's a really interesting one because it's really at a competitor to GDP as a measurement system. So gross national happiness was initiated by the royal family there. It's a Himalayan country, and they initiated it and seeking out to instill happiness and well-being into their country, and went about measuring that. The way that they do it is through 9 domains of well-being. So the 9 domains are things like time use, health, psychological well-being, community vitality, education, and there's other domains there. And then under each one of those domains is a measurement that you can attach to those domains, and you can also customize that to whatever community that it is that you're building. I went and experienced 2 weeks in Bhutan, meeting government ministers, the royal family, the religious leaders in terms of Buddhism and mindfulness, going to incredible places in the Himalayas to experience the culture, farm stays, and to see how gross national happiness came to life in a day-to-day point of view. And then being able to take that and become a practitioner and understanding how not only can it apply to your own life personally around the domains of well-being and where you sit in each one of those domains, because then how can you apply it to a happy spaces or to a consulting project where people have cultural issues. That was a really big thing for me, that I've loved gross national happiness as a model. It's seen quite a few challenges now because they were quite contained from the digital world for a while there. So there's a lot of influence now that's changing their country. As a foundation, I love platforms, like great models that are clearly explained and you can implement. We implemented a lot of the things from gross national happiness into happy spaces, but it's probably just not as overt that we talk about it or put it through our content.
I love that. And yeah, Anton's in there in the chat saying, love it, Matty. You've got cool. This is freaking awesome. I mean, just like how amazing it is to just see all of the different types of frameworks that you've used, and then you've brought it into one model. And so I want to talk about like the challenges. Like, let's talk about the frustrations, the things to avoid. We've got one question here in the chat from Danny, which is, what has been one of the biggest challenges that you've had to overcome at Happy Spaces?
Oh God,
where do we start? How much time we got?
Well,
we've actually got another at least 10 hours on this live stream. So
yeah, it's been a journey. I mean, but anything that anyone starts, I think we'd all agree that there's a big journey in that. But I think the nature of our model initially was, there's 2 things really. The nature of our model being a smaller co-working space means that you really have to activate and get people in, and you're essentially running at an 80 to 100% occupancy rate to be successful. So having the model where you can't have a heap of staffing, so your systems really need to be really good and all those sorts of things. So that was definitely a challenge. But in reality, our greatest challenge was lockdowns in Victoria. So we had, for those of you who don't know, the toughest lockdowns in the world, and we were the perfect organisation to not operate during lockdowns. So we were communal spaces, we were open plan, we were an office space. So our rent relief was nowhere near relative to the loss of income that we had. So, and we also decided to do a significant fit out during the beginnings of lockdowns, which we thought were going to go for 3 months. So, but it definitely, we learnt through that process how to navigate communication with our community, right? So when you've got a hyper intense and passionate topic like what we were facing there, and you've got a community of people with different opinions, navigating that from a communication point of view, going back to our values and sticking by those, even when they felt incredibly risky at times and incredibly vulnerable and exposing. I think that was our biggest challenge, was was how to respond to that moment in time through the lens of community and doing it in a way that was values aligned.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, we all thought those lockdowns would last like 3 months. I remember being in Fitzroy North and we were like, oh, lockdown, that sounds fun. 2 years later, we were like,
Yeah.
we've done like 400 consecutive days of like stage 4 lockdown. And for anyone, you know, anyone on this chat right now, I'd like all of you as attendees, please go to the chat and post where you're tuning in from. Like, which city are you based in right now? We just want to do a bit of a litmus test and see where we all are around the world. So whilst every attendee here is posting in the chat which city you're tuning in from, you know, we were living in Melbourne and Victoria at the time, and that was so difficult in 2020. And it really tested and put everyone in a pressure cooker, right, Matty, to understand like, what are the current structures? How is this going to live? And 2 years later, people have still emerged from COVID and the effects of the pandemic, but it fundamentally changed the foundations of so many communities, right?
Yeah.
And so from that knowledge, Matty, is there anything that you would avoid doing if you were trying to build a successful community in a co-working space now? Is there anything you would avoid doing? Because I remember when I was managing a co-working space and we put on these events and there was like one person there and like 50 people just working in the building, and everyone was like, go and grab everyone at their desk working and bring them to the event. I was like, that is like the fastest way to piss someone off. Like they're in the middle of working and you're like, can you just stop working and come to this event, and like drag them there and they're annoyed. Like there's not a good energy as well. So definitely avoid doing that. But is there anything you would kind of build on that?
Yeah, just quickly, I'll go back to the whole lockdown piece, because I think the flip side of that was that we've never been able to work more flexibly, more remotely. You know, the 9 to 5 in many ways, Monday to Friday, has been shattered, particularly in Victoria because of how intense it was. So, you know, the benefit of that for co-working was that everyone became more flexible. So everyone could be more nomadic, everyone could move more regionally and live a lifestyle. And I think that was really important. So there's always a balance of things, I think. But is there anything that I wouldn't do, would avoid? I think, you know, to be honest, I look back and go, there's 8 years of mistakes that I would never do again, but it's created our model, if that makes sense. So now my passion is actually around helping people avoid those mistakes and help create communities. So I don't know, like I think being very clear on your values and who you are and not forsaking those is really important. It's really tempting to go and say, I want to take this customer on, but I can see already that they're not going to fit, and they've already told us that this is not going to work for them. But so I think is going against your values. I know it sounds a bit wishy-washy, but I think, you know, one misaligned member or part of your community can have a big ripple throughout your culture. So I think that's really important. And also, you know, the thing that I would have done from the beginning more is getting the team and support structure really clear based on the model itself. It can be a thriving model, but you cannot have a team of 10 running one 500, 600 square meter co-working space. The best thing about co-working communities is there's people there that want to collaborate and do value exchanges, right? So those are the ways that you can create a successful co-working community, by sharing and saying, essentially, you do this for me and I'll do that for you, and there's an exchange. And I think that's a really beautiful way of relating. So getting that staffing structure right from the outset, and systems that free you from having to waste time on doing things that are manual versus can be digital, like Keysi, for example, which is a mobile phone door access.
Well, it's so key, right? Because you have to be values aligned and also just really listen to your gut around those kind of people that might not be aligned to the values of the community, because it only takes one bad actor. You know, we used to run this co-working space and we found out that someone was sleeping in the meeting room overnight. And they were sleeping overnight at the co-working space like 4 times a week. And you'd kind of come in at 6 a.m. and like this meeting room there'd be bean bags everywhere and like a toothbrush. And basically a lot of people would then start, you know, questioning things, and like the vibes would change. And fundamentally we sat down and we just said, okay, we actually just need to check in with this person. And we sat this person down. We just said, hey, are you okay? Like, do you have somewhere to live? Like, just want to actually check in with you as a human. Like, we've noticed XYZ. This person just said, I'm actually a startup founder and I live 5 hours away on a regional train. And it's just really hard when I work until 10 p.m. at night and I've got to be back here at 6 a.m. So it's easier for me to like have a nap and then like keep working. We were like, oh, okay. Like fundamentally, one, like this person is okay, which is like always the most important thing. But then two, we had to outline the behavior of just saying like, totally appreciate that. Just in our guidelines, like we're not licensed for people to like stay overnight here and sleep. So if there's anything else we can do to work together on potentially other solutions that might serve you, what would that look like? And so, we've got about five or so minutes left, Matty, of this. And one, I just want to dig deeper a little bit more on when you do have those bad acts. Maybe you have made those mistakes, like you're having a challenge. There's someone in the community that's disobeying the guidelines. They're like on the phone speaking too loud and they're like eating all the food and leaving milk everywhere. Like, it's quite disruptive, but that's a really hard conversation to have. How do you approach dealing with members who might be disrespecting community guidelines, not in a malicious way, but obviously it's us to have that kind of authority to understand, what's acceptable and what's not?
Yeah. Well, a big part of it is up front with our induction is making it really clear around things like ambience expectations. So we have really clear guidelines around, hey, we're open plan, phone calls are welcome, for example, but here's a few things around how we operate to ensure that it's ambience versus disruption. And then from there on, if there is feedback need to be given, we make sure that we do that in a friendly and respectful way. So we've put a lot of thought into what is the right way to do that. Obviously, going over and calling someone out in a open plan space is not ideal. So we've worked up some structures around communication around that as well. And then if there's not a shift or we have a one-on-one conversation usually, and usually that ends in either acceptance of the values or it's an exit, which is very rare. It's probably happened 3 times in 8 years. I actually think those one-on-one discussions, and ultimately it doesn't drag on too long, but once you get to that point and it's respectful and kind and friendly communication, most people respect that and understand it, and you also get to understand theirs. So just respectful and friendly feedback to a system though. What's the communication channel? Is it email? Is it text? Or is it pulling them aside in a private moment? What is that? So having a structure around that, which we've created in terms of that feedback, doesn't always work. There's always, evolving your communication processes. But yeah, that's what we found is being clear on our values and then communicating that feedback and also welcoming it when it comes our way as well.
Yes, of course. It's really understanding the level of comms and also the channel, right? Calling across the desk, like, shut up, like not acceptable way to respond. So I love that point, Matty, because we really have to identify, one, like what is the behavior here that's not acceptable? 2, what is the right timing and the communication in the channel to speak with this person? And then 3, what is the correct behavior that we want to model to make sure that we are then flipping that and then we can all roll on. So how cool, Matty. Are you ready for one last question from Sarah?
As long as possible. Yeah.
Well, Matty, we've got at least 12 hours an hour. 5 years, aren't we on here for, Beth? Right? I think that's asleep. It's America. So everyone, it's like 2:48 p.m. in Australia. We've been online for at least since midnight Australia time. So that's 14.45 hours right now we're on. So Matty, who's been here for 60 minutes, and I'm so happy about it. We have the last question from Sarah, which says, some companies are returning to office, and there's a lot of media around it, the kind of forced mandatory return to office. How will you embrace this growing trend, especially with your community, and show impact to their employers? And is this applicable?
Can you repeat that, Paz? I just really want to consider the question fully.
Yeah. So obviously there's a big context here where companies are mandating the return to the office. They're going, hey, you can't work from home. You've got to come back and work at the office. So as a co-working space, that's not mandated to work at the office, because if an employer has another office, for example, how would you actually, what's your perspective on it? One, the mandating back to the office, and how are you kind of then thinking about this growing trend if you're a co-working space and other companies are saying, hey, you have to work in person? Because ultimately, like as a co-working space operator, you're like, come on in.
Yeah.
But do you believe in mandating that and making it compulsory and like banning working from home? Like, what's your stance?
Yeah, absolutely not is my stance. I mean, part of why I created Happy Spaces was the exact opposite of that. It was around creating a lifestyle that you can that is flexible, that is, you know, some people work really well in 9 to 5. Some people don't, you know, like some people are energy people. They need bursts of activity and then rest. You know, there's a whole bunch of obviously different science now and research around how people work now. So for me, I don't think mandating anything is I think when you mandate things, it forces people to do a decision, put it that way, right? So if you're working for a company and they're mandating being back in the office and that's not your vibe, that's not your values, I think you have a decision to make. And if it suits you, then great. But I just think more freedom and flexibility to work the way we want to is really important. Having said that, as an employer, you also want someone who's doing the job, right? So there's two sides to this as well. I mean, the 9 to 5 was based on the Industrial Revolution. So we are evolving at a very rapid rate, and lockdowns were a massive stimulus to that. So that's a bit of a longer, you can obviously feel my passion for this. But in terms of, I guess, how we react, I think our customers, there's a case that we can put forward for productivity and collaboration for companies that may or may not want their staff to work from home. I would suggest that we've put together packages for employees to say, here's the survey results that we shared earlier. Here's the impact of working from a co-working space. So I really feel like there's a possibility for us to share with the corporates that it is beneficial to work close to home, not at home, in terms of productivity as a particular area of interest for the companies. But I haven't thought too much about that purely because we're regional, so it's not as impactful. Obviously, it does probably reduce our customer base, but yeah, I really think that people should be empowered to work the way that they want, but in line with the values of the organization that they work for as well, because it has to be a meeting of the minds on that one.
Yeah, it's so aligned exactly with what you're saying, because we don't want to force anyone to do something that's not going to be conducive to their situation, right? Like every environment is different, especially if you have dogs at home that you can't bring to the office. So Matty, can I bring this? She's called Matty, but Matty, can I bring Matty into Happy Spaces next time if it's mandated? No, I can't. You know,
they're doing mandates, right?
It's not conducive for everyone, right?
Dogs have come up for us a number of times over the years, and we've always put it through the whole community lens. So there's one request from one person or 3 people, whatever it is, and then we put it through the whole matrix. And that's been a good approach for us. But I would love to have dogs in the office as well, because I've got my dog now. So, but I do want to just say, I saw Sarah Incoles said there, I'd love to see co-working spaces as approved locations for these types of employers. I think that's a really good point. If you can partner up with corporation, with businesses that their employees might be remote and regional or just want to save time, right? If you can make that case for time. We did a survey on time and how much time we were saving people versus their last job. And it worked out to be like a full 4 weeks of business days for some people. So yeah, I think that point that Sarah's got there is a really great idea.
Well, Matty, let's wrap on that point, because there have been amazing ideas shared today. So just thank you so much. Everyone, please post an emoji and thank you in the chat to express your gratitude to Matty for giving us time out of his day during our 24 live stream event of Loop. So Matty, any final words of wisdom before we wrap up?
Well, I just want to say that, you know, connection and belonging is fundamental to your well-being. So, and in the times that we live in and the disconnection and the loneliness that's happening, if you can find a community that you're passionate about that gives you that, then get right into it, I'd say.
Yeah, get right into it. Just the Aussie way we do it down under, isn't it? All right, Matty, thank you so much for joining. We will see you in the ether. I'll see you at Happy Spaces probably tomorrow because we've got an event there tomorrow night, which is very